Good evening, you're watching TKC Daily, where we make sense of the global events with straight facts and sharp analysis. Tonight we begin with Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. Gold has soared past $3,100. Global markets are in chaos. Trump proposed Liberation Day tariffs are set to shake up global trade with a staggering $6 trillion at stake. We will decode everything that you need to know and also what we don't know. Meanwhile, in the Indo-Pacific, tensions are at all-time high. China has ramped up its military presence around Taiwan, fueling fears of a full-scale conflict. Is this the beginning of something far more dangerous? We'll tell you everything about it. Over in the Middle East, Israel's forces have seized new territories in Gaza, displacing thousands and thousands of people. What does this mean for the people caught up in the crossfire, and how could it change the course of the war? We'll tell you everything about it. The US has just announced a $6 billion sale of F-16 fighter jets to the Philippines, a direct challenge to China's dominance in the South China Sea. How will Beijing respond? We will tell you. And finally, back home in India, the controversial Waqf bill has reignited a political storm in the parliament. What's at stake and why is the opposition fighting so hard against it? All this is lined up. Let's begin. Gold prices rising, markets falling, and world leaders cutting tariffs and taxes, all because of Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariffs. The US president is planning massive import levies aiming to rake in a staggering $6 trillion annually. With only a few hours to President Trump's address, markets are already reacting. For example, gold prices have hit record highs, with spot gold rising 0.6% to some $3,128 an ounce. Businesses are scrambling and key trade partners are bracing for the impact. Even Israel has preemptively scrapped duties on US imports ahead of Trump's big announcement. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Donald Trump has made one thing crystal clear, and that is the tariffs are coming. What's still unclear is that how high, how wide, and how soon. Since taking office, Trump has slapped tariffs on Chinese imports, steel, aluminium, and even some of the goods coming in from Canada and Mexico, its neighboring countries. Now, he's about to announce a sweeping new set of tariffs, calling it, and I quote, Liberation Day tariffs. The White House has been tight-lipped about the exact numbers, but we have some clues. During his campaign, Trump floated the idea of a 10% tariff on all the imports coming in. At times, he even hinted at 20% or in some cases as high as 60% on Chinese imports. More recently, he talked about reciprocal tariffs, meaning if a country charges the US with a certain rate, the US will hit them back with the same rate. And here's where it gets even more messier. Trump's team isn't just holding at the tariffs. They are also considering other policies like VAT, that is value addition tax, that some countries use, making it even harder to predict what will happen next. Officially, the list of affected countries hasn't been confirmed, but Trump has hinted at a blanket approach, meaning tariffs could hit every country, every trading partner of the United States. But insiders say the focus will be on the so-called dirty 15 countries that the US believes have unfair trade practices. The list likely includes China, Canada, Mexico, Japan, Germany, South Korea, India, Italy, France, Brazil, Indonesia, Taiwan, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Even key US allies like China and the European Union aren't safe. Trump recently said, and I quote, "Friends has been oftentimes much worse than foe." So who actually pays the price? Well, US businesses importing foreign goods, unless they can shift production to the United States, which let me tell you isn't easy or cheap. American customers will also bear the burden as businesses pass those extra costs onto them through higher prices. Now, foreign economies that rely on US trade are also at risk. India, for example, could take a $3.1 billion hit, possibly reducing its GDP by 0.1%. But here's the real risk: a global trade war, as other countries might retaliate with their own tariffs. A stock market shakeup, as investors are already fleeing to safe haven assets like gold. A possible US recession, as higher costs could slow down the customer spending and the business growth. Trump argued that these tariffs will boost American manufacturing and fund his tax cuts. But on the other hand, critics, including economist Robert Rich, calls them, and I quote, a massive transfer of wealth to the very top. So will Liberation Day free America from bad trade deals, or will it send the economy into chaos? We will find out in next couple of hours. China has once again flexed its military muscle in Taiwan Strait, launching large-scale live-fire exercises encircling the island. The latest drills, dubbed as Strait Thunder 2025A, simulated precision strikes on key ports and energy facilities, marking an escalation in Beijing's pressure campaign against Taiwan. The exercises comes just a day after China deployed its army, navy, air and rocket forces to surround Taiwan, an operation that Taipei condemned as a blatant military provocation. On Tuesday, Taiwan's defense ministry reported an unprecedented show of force, with 21 Chinese warships, including the Shandong aircraft carrier group, along with 71 warplanes and 4 Coast Guards vessels operating around the island. This was the highest number of warships detected nearly in a year, and the most aircrafts since October 2024. So you can understand the whole situation. China's Eastern Theater Command framed the drill as serious warning to Taiwan's new president Lia Ching-te, whom Beijing labels as separatist. The Chinese military released propaganda posters and videos depicting Taiwan under siege, further intensifying psychological pressure, the psychological warfare. Now, the state media have also ramped up rhetoric against Lai, calling him a troublemaker and blaming him for escalating the tensions in the region with China. The timing of these drills suggests a strategic calculation, a very calculated move. Chinese authorities waited until after key diplomatic engagements, including meeting between President Xi Jinping and global business leaders, before launching the military exercises around the island. With the world's focus on other crises, such as the economic fallout from Trump's new tariffs, China seized the opportunity to push its agenda on Taiwan with minimal international pushback, minimal international interference. In Washington, the White House called China's actions intimidating tactics and reaffirmed its commitment to Taiwan. US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, during his recent visit to Asia, criticized Beijing's aggression and pledged, and I quote, robust deterrence to counter China's military ambitions. The US has long supported Taiwan with arms sales and military aid, and also any further escalation could draw America's involvement even deeper. For Taiwan, these war games present both a threat and an opportunity. Let me explain how. While the military drills serve as a stark reminder of China's growing capabilities, Taiwanese defense officials see them as a chance to study enemy tactics and refine their own response and their response strategies. Each time China flexes its military strength, Taiwan's armed forces analyze the maneuvers to better prepare for potential real-world scenarios. Experts believe that Beijing's long-term strategy is not necessarily an all-out invasion or a war, but a gradual squeeze on Taiwan through increased military pressure, economic coercion, and psychological warfare methods. The goal is to wear down Taiwan's resistance and push its people towards accepting reunification as inevitable. However, opinion polls consistently show that the vast majority of people from Taiwan reject Beijing's claim and prefer to maintain their democratic way of life. With tensions in Taiwan Strait at its highest in years, China's military drills serve as a stark warning, a stark reminder of what could come next. Whether this is merely another show of force or a prelude of more aggressive actions remain to be seen. But one thing is certain that I can tell you is that Taiwan is now firmly at the center of world's geopolitical stage. Israel has announced its plans to escalate its military operations in Gaza, with Defense Minister Karl stating that the Israeli military will seize, and I quote, large areas of territory and incorporate them into, and I quote again, security zones. In a statement on Wednesday, Karl emphasized that the operation aims to destroy and clear areas of terrorists and terrorist infrastructure. However, this expansion is expected to lead to a large-scale evacuation of Palestinian civilians. The move follows reports from local hospitals that at least 15 Palestinians were killed in an overnight strike across Gaza. Reports suggest that Israeli forces have already begun operations in Rafah, with Israeli military orders forcing around some 140,000 people to leave their homes. Similar evacuation directives were also issued for parts of northern Gaza. Israeli army radio reported that tanks and ground forces have started advancing into central and eastern parts of Rafah, raising concerns that a full-scale ground invasion is imminent. Deadly Israeli airstrikes were reported in various parts of Gaza on Wednesday. Let me tell you something else that might shock you. A strike on UN clinic sheltering displaced families in Jabalia reportedly killed 19 people, including 9 children, according to the nearby Indonesian hospital. The Israeli military stated that the targets was, and I quote, Hamas terrorists hiding in command and control center. Additional overnight strikes killed at least 20 more people, with first respondents recovering 12 bodies, including children and women, from a home in Khan Yunis. A witness, Rida Al-Jabbar, said a neighbor and 3-month-old baby were among the dead, describing the devastation as, and I quote, unbearable. What's about humanitarian situation? The humanitarian situation in Gaza continued to deteriorate as expected. Israel has refused to allow aid into Gaza since March 2nd, the longest aid blockade since the war began. The lack of essential supplies, including food, including medicines, have even exaggerated the suffering of civilians trapped in the war zone. Last month, the UN scaled down its operations in the region after multiple humanitarian workers, including a UN staff member, were killed by Israeli forces. The international community has repeatedly called for an immediate resumption of aid deliveries, warning of a deepening humanitarian crisis. But who cares? The latest offensive is part of Israel's broader strategy to launch on March 18 after blaming Hamas for rejecting a new US-backed ceasefire proposal aimed at securing the release of some 59 hostages still held in Gaza. Hamas in turn accused Israel of violating a previously agreed deal in January. The Hostages and Missing Family Forum in Israel, representing relatives of those still held captive, expressed shock at the news that urged the Israeli government to prioritize securing their response. But like I said, who cares? The expansion of Israel's military campaign has drawn mixed reactions across the globe. While Israeli officials defend the operation as, and I quote, necessary for the security, many international organizations and human rights groups have condemned the increased violence and warning to dire consequences for civilians. United Nations officials have warned that intensified military operations could result in further destruction and loss of life, with lasting consequences for region's stability. What stability are we talking about here? As the conflict intensifies, question remains over the long-term implications of Israel's expanding quote-unquote security zones and the broader regional impact of this military strategy. The situation in Gaza remains precarious, with no clear resolution in sight. For now, the people of Gaza continue to bear the brunt of an unrelenting war as diplomatic efforts to broker a peace deal remains elusive. The US has officially approved a $5.58 billion sale of F-16 fighter jets to the Philippines, a move seen as a significant step in boosting Manil's air combat strategies and capabilities amid rising tensions with China in the South China Sea. The US State Department confirmed the deal on Tuesday, which included 20 F-16 aircrafts along with associated military equipments. Now, the decision to sell F-16 is part of Washington's broader effort to reinforce its key regional allies, particularly the Philippines. You may ask why? In response to China's growing military assertiveness. The US government stated that the warplanes would enhance the Philippines Air Force maritime surveillance capabilities and improve its ability to neutralize enemy air defenses. This development comes at the times of confrontation between Manila and Beijing over the disputed South China Sea intensify. China claims almost entire waterway despite a 2016 ruling by an international tribunal that rejected its sweeping claims. The Philippines, backed by the US and other regional allies, has repeatedly challenged Chinese activities in the area, including the presence of Chinese vessels near disputed islands. Despite the approval, a Philippine defense spokesperson suggested that Manila has not yet received official notification of the US decision of giving F-16s. However, under President Marcos, the Philippines has taken a more assertive and aggressive stance against China's maritime claims, increasing cooperation with the US and strengthening its military capabilities. Let me give you some instances. In December, the Philippines announced its plans to procure the US-made Typhoon missile system, a move that angered Beijing. China has consistently warned that Manila's growing military ties with Washington could lead to an arms race in the region. Reacting to the latest F-16 deal, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson reiterated that defense cooperation between countries should not, and I quote, target any third party. The Philippines has not only strengthened its military ties with the US, United States, but also expanded defense cooperation with our country, India. In a significant development, India exported BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles to Philippines in a deal worth nearly 375 million US dollars. This marked India's first international missile export, reinforcing the Philippines' defense capabilities against potential threat, possibly from China, or I should say essentially from China. The BrahMos missile, developed jointly by India and Russia, is considered one of the fastest supersonic cruise missiles in the world and provides the Philippine Navy with advanced strike capabilities. The addition of both BrahMos missiles and F-16 fighter jets highlights Manila's commitment to modernizing its defense forces amid regional security concerns, particularly with China in the Black Sea. The approval of F-16 sale also coincides with US efforts to counter China's influence in the broader Indo-Pacific, particularly aimed at growing fears of conflict with Taiwan, as I told you earlier on the show. On Tuesday, Philippine military chief acknowledged that his country would inevitably be drawn into any conflict involving Taiwan, emphasizing the need for increased preparedness. China has repeatedly warned Manila against involvement in Taiwan-related issues, with Beijing cautioning and questioning that those, and I quote, who will play with fire will only get burned. While the Philippines has yet officially finalized the F-16 purchase, the US approved marks a significant milestone in the country's military modernization efforts. As tensions in the Indo-Pacific region continues to rise, Philippines' response to growing defense partnerships with both the US and India signals a strategic shift aimed at strengthening its ability to counter external threats. Whether this will deter Chinese aggression or further escalate tensions remains to be seen in the times to come. The Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 has been reintroduced in the Lok Sabha by Union Minister Kiran Rijiju, sparking a heated debate. The bill seeks to amend the Waqf Act of 1995, which governs properties donated for religious and charitable purposes under the Islamic law. While the government argues that these amendments will improve management and transparency, the bill has faced strong opposition from India Bloc and various Muslim organizations that includes All India Muslim Personal Law Board, that is AIMPLB. The Waqf Act of 1995 regulates Waqf properties, assets dedicated to religious or charitable causes. These properties are managed by state Waqf boards, which oversee their maintenance and prevent encroachments. However, concerns about corruption, mismanagement, and disputes over the ownership have led to calls for reform. The Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 possesses several major changes. including strengthening the oversight of Waqf Board to ensure better management and accountability by introducing stricter measures to prevent unauthorized occupation of Waqf properties, enhancing transparency by implementing digital documentation of Waqf assets, and refining legal terminology or making them easy to remove ambiguous and addressing existing loopholes. Opposition leaders say their concerns were not addressed. As the bill was introduced, both the BJP and Congress issued whips to their MPs ensuring maximum participation in the debate and voting. An 8-hour discussion has been scheduled, which may extend further. The Samajwadi Party from Uttar Pradesh and other opposition members have also expressed their strong opposition, making the passage of bill a contentious issue. With high political stakes, the outcome of this parliamentary showdown will determine the future of Waqf governance in the country. The coming days will reveal whether the government succeeds in pushing the bill through, which it was not in the earlier times, or the opposition pressure further forces amendments or delays or a JPC again. Let's see what happens in the times to come. And that's all I have for you on the show tonight. I will see you tomorrow. Take care and good night.